Matt Card is president and founder of Rethink Recycling Co-op, a new collaboration of community members and organizations who have come together with the aim of driving national change in the waste and sustainability sectors, including providing education and recycled plastic materials for sustainable manufacturing. Matt also runs his own manufacturing business, Akoye, is that
Yes,
how I say it?
correct.
Which creates products such as bench tops out of such recycled materials. So thanks for joining us, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So can you start us off by telling us a little about the Rethink Recycling Co-op and how it works?
Yep, absolutely. Well, basically, we are a grassroots co-op. We've gone a little bit old school. We just the general idea of bringing a whole heap of small businesses, medium businesses together that are struggling in their own areas. They're struggling to get a foothold. They're struggling to build their own networks. They're struggling to get the support and the information they need. And we saw that there's a lot of businesses out there, including ourselves, who are really struggling to really get a foothold in the industry and try and drive their own brands and build them up. So, after a few conversations locally, we discovered that there was plenty of people in the same boat. So we sat down and brainstormed everything we were trying to achieve and what we were trying to do. And we decided to form a cooperative, which is a great way to enterprise and network together, because it's as a cooperative, it creates keeps everything to a single vote within the cooperative itself. So everyone pretty much stands on a level playing field. No one can actually get in and take over. No one can push any agendas. No one can take any greater control of everything. So it really opens up the ability for us to all communicate on a standard level and work together. Which is it's basically about bringing the community together and creating that group of of people and that platform for us all to network off of. So that's the idea behind creating the cooperative. We've got about 22 businesses and members around Melbourne that have come together in the last few months to really kick this off and push it through. And we've all got a very similar agenda, and we're all working towards creating sustainable lifestyles, creating sustainable products, and really focusing on targeting some big issues we've currently got in the community, in specifically plastic waste. We all know it's a pretty major issue at the moment. It's very topical. The government, state and federal, are really working hard to try and get on top of it and hitting lots of barriers. As are lots of small businesses, which is again why we've put our heads together to try and grow this network between ourselves, so we can all work towards that goal and really push our agenda without actually stepping on each other's toes at the same time. It's a market that needs to see a whole heap of change, and I think the best way we're going to achieve that is working together and not working opposing each other, driving similar agendas. So that's, I guess, the idea of the cooperative and why we formed it. Rethink itself, we've teamed up with Lids for Kids, which is one of our major partners, who I'm sure most people are familiar with their network. They are now a registered charity, which is a great move forward for those guys. They've got a member base of over 37,000 lid collectors nationally, which is awesome. And they're just doing amazing things for the community and amazing things for a real problem plastic within our community. It's a plastic that struggled to get picked up through our current recycling systems. Most of the facilities won't take them, and if they do take them, typically end up just sending them off to landfill because they're too much of a problem to process. So where Lids for Kids were sending those lids to initially ended up coming to a close. It was a company called Envision, and they were 3D printing prosthetic limbs for kids, which was a fantastic initiative. It did some really good stuff. It got a lot of backing and a lot of following. Sadly, the limbs themselves were just not quite good enough to carry out their jobs. So there was a few issues along with the compatibility, along with their functionality, and the clients, and I eventually got to the point, it's like, look, they're not quite meeting our requirements. We're going to have to step away from it. So which effectively was 100% of what Lids for Kids lids we're going towards. So after sitting down and seeing this problem evolve for these guys, we got in contact with Tim Miller, who is the founder of the charity, and presented to him our cooperative idea, and where we were planning and hoping to take this on a national scale. And look, he was all over it. He was really excited about it. I think he's actually got more energy than I had, and I was the one telling him about it. Which is a relationship that's growing fantastic strengths and in leaps and bounds as we develop the processes we're working towards. And basically, we've now become the main supplier of those guys for their lids. And we plan to build a national network in conjunction with those guys of micro-sized recycling facilities, which will have many positive benefits within the community. Obviously, it's massive reduction in carbon footprint from the logistics of transporting plastic all over the place to get recycled, getting it from the end consumer back into the manufacturing facilities. Again, reducing all those logistics and stuff around it. And the ability to, collect locally, manufacture locally, and then resell those products locally, targeting small businesses within council areas, and close that loop, if you like, keeping that plastic in its cycle and servicing the neighbourhood that it's actually set up in. So it's, there's lots of pluses in there, solving plastic problems. And we're working with a lot of disadvantaged people. We're working with a lot of the migrant and refugee communities as well, to try and help them fill a few holes in their sectors. And so this is a program we're rolling out. Basically, it's in motion now. We've got a couple of councils around Melbourne are extremely interested, and we're in conversations around setting up their facilities within their municipalities. We're in the process of setting up our flagship recycling plant at the moment here in Springvale, and that's coming along. Well, it's moving smoothly. Haven't hit too many barriers so far. We're just finalising the last of the few ideals, and that will help us to springboard and leapfrog that into the rest of the community. Which is, it's been a great experience so far for us to get involved with these guys. We've got a couple of other big partners that have come on board that we can't quite announce yet to help drive this initiative for us to get through. And that's sort of one of our major national, rollouts to get that sort of problem-solving space and initiative up and rolling. And on top of that, or off the back of that, we plan to also implement and champion pushing sustainability, and in particular plastic recycling capabilities into the national schooling system. And we're looking at this as a case of what most schools we all grew up. There was always, a textiles department. There was always a woodworking department. There was always a ceramics department. We had the engineer, mechanical department. So we got to asking the question: is like, well, why don't we have a plastic department? Why aren't we not pushing plastic as a resource and a commodity? Why do we just look at it as waste and something that's to be used and thrown away and not thought about? So we've teamed up with a couple of teachers associations at the moment. Again, I can't quite announce those partnerships because there's still lots of details we're working out. But yeah, we're currently head deep into developing a school program that will be pushed on a mobile basis, as well as a permanent fixture basis within schools, driving innovation and trying to change attitudes and get kids really heavily involved in what we can do with plastic. It's a resource that has pretty much an infinite lifespan. If we throw it away, it becomes an issue. If we reuse it, it's an amazing product. And if we reuse it correctly, we can make a resource that is going to last a long time. Reusing plastic is about an 80% reduction in cost production to virgin plastic. So there's lots and lots of wins with reusing plastic, which is why we want to try and drive the education and the attitude and change consumerism along the lines of what we can do with plastic. It's, like I said, it's an infinite resource. It's something we can use within our society for a long time. And we don't actually even need to make any more plastic. We've actually manufactured enough plastic to last us several hundred years before we'd even look at potentially having reduced it down to something that is no longer usable or viable in the market. So those are our three major areas about Rethink Recycling. We're built for the community, allowing people to connect together and work together and support each other. We provide many tools in that avenue, everything from a from a workspace to mentorship to actually getting in and setting yourself up in the sector. And then with driving education, which is driving attitude, driving change, we see this kind of consumer change is a generational change. We all know, it's been discussed through the few of the talks on here as well. We all know the baby boomers are quite set in their ways. You've got the Gen Xers that sort of want to change. You've got the millennials, and I'm not sure where they think they sit. They're sort of floating left and right all the time. And then we've got the Gen Ys and the up and coming, which I think are the ones will probably drive the big change when it comes to our sustainability and the circular economy. So we figure if we can get into their heads now while they're still in school and change their attitudes in 5 to 10 years as they leave school, they're going to have those attitudes built in to themselves, as opposed to us trying to now change attitudes. We won't need to. It would have changed by itself organically. So those, that's sort of Rethink Recycling in a nutshell, and that's what we're trying to drive and what we're trying to change. And the more people we can get involved and support and build this up, the quicker it'll happen.
Yeah. I think that is such an important thing to reinforce, I guess, is the fact that recycled plastic is actually a fantastic resource. So many people are trying to go zero plastic, but there is so much plastic already out there in the world that it's a huge resource to be able to reuse that. And you're actually doing better for the environment by reusing that plastic than switching to other materials that are often higher impact. Like, for example, Susan Mizrahi at Australia Post yesterday said that their 80% recycled plastic bags, parcels, are significantly better for the environment or lower impact than their cardboard boxes. Yep. So that's an important thing to, an important message that we need to, I think, get out amongst people who are interested in the environment to make sure that recycled plastic is on their list. It's also amazing that you are looking at the upstream and the downstream, basically, that you're participating in both the collection of that waste and turning it into new products.
Absolutely. And yeah, like I said, we very much look at this as a resource. Plastic is a really strong resource. It's a commodity. It can be traded, and it is being traded. There's actually quite a lot. There's a significant chain. As much as China did knock back taking a lot of our plastic, that process did actually include them taking our waste plastic, turning it into what we call a regrind palletized plastic and selling it back to our manufacturers over here. So that process is going on. It's just not on a large enough scale. And obviously the logistics involved with sending plastic overseas and bringing it back again obviously has a massive carbon transport footprint attached to it, which gets to the point where it starts to negate any efforts of actually reusing it in the first place. So it is got to change those attitudes and get the markets to be more accepting of reusing plastic.
Can you share just a little bit about how you fell into this space? You haven't always been working in recycled plastic. So what inspired you to start having those conversations in the first place that led to Rethink?
Yeah, for sure. It's look, I stepped away from what I was doing 2 years ago, just to start something small, just to fill a market hole that I'd picked up. I'm an ex-builder. I've spent a lot of time flipping properties. And so I've worked in that industry with a lot of different materials, a lot of different people, a lot of different skills. And look, at what scared me most about that industry is the amount of waste that comes out of that industry is just exorbitant. The amount of stuff that goes to landfill makes me cry, especially because you look at it, a lot of the materials that do get thrown away can be reused, and some of them are still brand new products. They just happen to be slightly the wrong size, or they're literally just an offcut. It all goes to landfill. Demolition properties is a really big issue. The amount of waste that comes out, there's no separation of any products or any materials. It literally is just picked up by a backhoe and dumped into a skip and taken straight to landfill. And some of the resources in those things is just huge. The amount of aged old hardwood timber, the amount of copper in all of the wiring, there's some really good, all the plastics involved in all of that stuff can all be recycled and reused. It's just that there's a lot of money in tipping, there's a lot of money in demolition, and there's too much money in paying people to actually get in and separate all of that out. So that sort of drove me down to want to pull away from that industry itself. But I saw a market hole, and I wanted to produce a product to replace composite stone in the benchtop industry. Now, a couple of years ago, there was a bit of a hoo-ha made about a lung condition called silicosis, which is, look, if I had to compare it to something, I guess it goes down the lines of the asbestos. It's based off sort of microfragments getting into the lung and the respiratory system, and in some people actually causes an adverse reaction, which I believe can become terminal over time. So off the back of that, because the government and the media really jumped onto that for a while, so we watched the trends change from the composite stones being used in residential and commercial building to everyone's moving back towards more of your painted, your laminates, your solid timbers, and or your natural stones. So the whole market has pretty much shifted away from these composite stones, and they're a fantastic product. They're a cheap product. They're a good looking product, but unfortunately they had that, they ended up with that stigma. So I wanted to see if I could come up and produce a new composite stone that tackled the silicosis, but was also made from recycled materials and could also seriously reduce the carbon emissions that were put out through the common processes of these common stones, and as well as concrete, which is, great product, but it's also a bad product. So we started on this journey, and we sat down and we did some experimentation with some recycled glass, which worked out really well. And we added in a few other components that had some great aspects to deliver to the mix, including carbon reduction, as well as increased permeability in the materials themselves, which is fantastic. And then we looked into creating an internal formwork structure or reinforcement structure. I really wanted to make it out of recycled plastic. And this is where this journey sort of really began for me, because I just had the attitude that, well, hey, look, we've got a massive plastic problem. There's plastic everywhere we look. Apparently there's warehouses full of plastic. I'll go and get some plastic. So once I went to try and get some plastic, I actually couldn't find plastic. I couldn't get plastic anywhere. I certainly couldn't get any processed plastic. I mean, sure enough, I could collect my own stuff, but I didn't have any machines that I could process that plastic with and start to produce the product I was looking at trying to develop. So I reached out to a couple of local universities, a couple of other companies around, and pretty much didn't get any help at all. If I got any response, it was very much along the lines of, oh, sorry, we don't really do that kind of thing. So that sort of left me to continue my searching, and I came across a global initiative called Precious Plastic, who some of you may or may not have come across. It's a great initiative, started about 5-6 years ago over in Norway by a guy called Dave Atkins. And basically he had the same ideas of just changing attitudes towards plastic, and he wanted to empower people to be able to process their own plastic waste and manufacture it into new products. So he developed this whole system. He developed all of these machines. He'd made the whole lot open source, put it all online for everyone just to grab it, use it, and take it. And I've come across these guys. They had a set of machines that were supposedly relatively easy to make, relatively cheap to make. And I thought, well, because my product's not proven yet, I thought, well, at a low cost option, I can get in, I can make these machines, and we can potentially, start to develop our own product line. And that turned out to be a journey that took quite a long time to actually come together. Obviously, we had a whole heap of issues with the COVID pandemic coming along, which shut down a whole heap of supply lines, made these machines extremely hard to get the parts for. So a project that probably should have only taken a couple of months ended up taking nearly 12 months to develop these machines. And through that network is how I actually came across all of these other companies out there that were trying to actually do something similar. And all of this machinery and process, there was not a lot of support for it. There was no companies out there that you could actually go to and get them to help you to do this. And there's certainly no one had any of these capabilities of these machines to do on a small level without going to a major manufacturer that wanted you to either buy 2 tons worth of materials or make a purchase order for 1 million units of whatever you wanted to develop. So from that point of view, all I wanted to do was prototype things. So it was, it was deflating, to say the least. So I sort of thought, right, I can do this. So we got in and we developed our own machines and our processes. And we quickly discovered towards the end of it that we'd spent an absolute fortune making these machines. And we still did not have our prototype developed. And we also still could not get plastic. So I had machines to process, to grind up plastic, and I had a machine to melt plastic and extrude it into the product I was trying to make. But I could not find enough plastic. It was literally trying to, get friends to, keep their bottles and keep their plastic containers, or, get the family involved. And that was not going to, as much as it solved the short-term problem, it wasn't going to solve the larger problem of a plastic supply, which is sort of just grown and grown. And as we started talking to the smaller community members around us, we discovered, yes, they had similar issues. So we all got together and sort of formed that co-op and joined up with Lids for Kids. And now we're in that position where we've got almost an unlimited supply of plastic coming in through that network. We've gone and developed all of the machines and taken them from this open source plan and stepped them up to an Australian safety standard and electrically certified standard. And we've also been able to reduce the cost by around 50% of what we originally manufactured our machines for. So it's given more businesses the opportunity to get into this at a level that's affordable. If you're as a small startup business, typically these machines, if you're building them yourselves for the full set, you'd be looking at spending $50,000, and then you were still left with a whole system to set yourself up, work through, do a lot of testing and processing. So we thought we'd sit down and develop this whole support network, build up all the documentations around it, build up all the machinery, build up the systems, be able to show people, anyone that wants to get involved, to get into this and get this plastic off the streets, back into the economy, and back circulating, and solving a whole heap of other issues along the way. So that was the journey that took me from there to here, which is a few directions we were unexpected to be traveling in. But I tell you what, it's been an amazing journey. The passion that's out there in this sector is just brilliant. The passion of the people that want to get involved is brilliant. And we've just discovered through starting this cooperative that we've also given it an opportunity to a lot of people that want to get in and make a change. They want to get in and help out, but they can't. So they've got currently running businesses that potentially don't have the scope or the room or the need to set up these facilities, but at the same time, they would like to be involved or have access to those processes. And there's a heap of people out there that just want to help and they can't. A lot of people sit down and go, oh, look, I'm just one person. What can I do? And as much as just changing a few things at home does make a big difference, but we've also given, an opportunity for people to get, hands-on involved, as well as making a big change. Because we just see that the bigger the community grows, the more people that get involved, the bigger the changes we can make, the faster we're going to be able to change attitudes and redesign and redevelop the whole market.
Yeah, it's awesome that you're not only enabling businesses who want to start up in this space, who want to create a recycled content product, but you're also providing the education to bring more people into that pipeline, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And the kids, just from the little bit of talking out there, the kids just love it. There's a few within the precious plastic community. There's a few schools have embraced their systems, and they post a lot on their social media, and they're really actively involved. And the kids are so excited, especially when you bring in an empty Coke bottle and you grind it up into little pieces, and then you stick it into another little machine, and then you can melt that plastic down and produce a small little, whether it be a keychain or whether it just be some token that you can go, hey, I just made this. How awesome. This used to be a Coke bottle and now it's a keychain. Not that we're a big advocate for promoting those products, but it's more about teaching that process and the energy the kids are bringing to it. It's just, really exciting. So we just want to be able to get more and more people involved and allow these communities to grow at an affordable level, as opposed to having to really battle against, an industry that's not supported.
Definitely. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the circular economy generally, but first, I think it'd be good to address Marcus's question, asking how do the small businesses in your co-op access the expertise they need to efficiently set up and scale their businesses or raise funds? Is there a common marketplace?
Cool, great question. Absolutely. So we ourselves within our group have quite a lot of experience playing around within the industry. Obviously, we're still learning and growing ourselves, But we will supply, basically supply you with support and the knowledge that we've gained to help you grow and set up the facilities. We have all the material connections, the network connections, and obviously we have all the machinery that we can supply to you. Now, funding, obviously that's always a big issue for small business. Starting up is an expensive process, especially doing it alone. So what we tend to do, this whole project and model is built off funding. In particular, council funding, federal and state government funding, as well as enterprise sponsorship and support through those networks. We're having some success so far in our first grant applications, which is pretty much our model application at this point in time. So basically, we will sit down with you, we'll discuss with you what your aims are, what your goals are. We will look at the markets you're trying to get into, your local markets around you. And then we will help make connections within the areas down there to get a group of volunteers passionate about what you want to do and get you into that space. And then we will help you pitch to councils, pitch to universities, pitch to local enterprise. We will help you with your grant writing processes, basically just following through all of that. So we've built a model that we will roll out, and that's what, so as a member, you get access to all that information, all of the mentorship. And we've got a couple of double PhD engineers in the group that really focus on sustainability and plastics. We've got another PhD lady who's very focused on plastics as well. And plus we've just got all of the guys in the small precious plastic community that have been experimenting for the last 2-3 years just with their own processes and products, which is just that knowledge base that we can draw on and then share again within the cooperative. To address the last part of that, is there a common marketplace? So this is the absolute big kicker, because there is no huge market for recycled plastic at the moment, and that's our biggest challenge. And it is part of our mantra we are building the market from scratch. So as you know, when you say in an overall sense, is there a market? Absolutely. There is plastic in pretty much every single piece of item that you interact with every day, all day. So there's a massive market there. It's about now changing the way we look at the products and the way we manufacture the products, and diverting manufacture away from virgin plastic and looking at more viable solutions using recycled plastic. So if we can set up a number of these micro-processing facilities throughout the nation, that actually gives us as a collective a very powerful manufacturing position to start to look at some of these major mass-produced items that are currently all made from virgin plastic and predominantly imported from Asia. So the idea is to absorb that market into us, but make it and produce it from locally collected and produced plastics. So therefore, we're cleaning ourselves up. Basically, instead of paying someone else to go and collect it from another country and send it off to China, and then we go, oh well, that's a cool product, we'll buy that off you. You've got the logistics behind that's ridiculous. I've actually got a product here. It was a promotional coffee cup that was given to me, and it was this fantastic spiel about how this cup's been made from recycled coffee cup lids, and the journey's on there. It's this close the loop whole mantra behind it. And then when I got down to reading it, it was really a little bewildering, to the point where I tracked where the plastic had gone to produce this coffee cup. And it started its life in China, where it was manufactured into all the little white takeaway coffee cup lids that we use and see every day. And those lids were then bought and shipped to the industry over in the UK, where they were then shipped out to the local cafes, and all the coffees were sold, and we all drank our coffees, and then we threw away our cups and never gave it a second thought. Those lids were then collected at some level through their recycling facilities, and they were all bundled back up into a nice big container and sent back to China. And China said, oh, great, thanks. You've given us our plastic back. And I have no doubt that they were probably paid to take that plastic back. And they thought, right, let's grind these up, and we'll make them into a recycled coffee cup. And it's a great product. The insert of the coffee cup has been designed by Dyson, so it's quite functional. It looks good. It works quite well. The outside of the cup, again, looks great. It looks like it's been made from recycled plastic. It does the job. And then what happened to it? Well, a few of our local councils here down in Melbourne thought, oh, wow, that's a fantastic product. So they then purchased those coffee cups from China, who then imported them into Australia and distributed them within the local communities. So on the ideals of that, fantastic idea, great promotional product. But when you look at the process that this cup went through just to get back to the consumer as a recycled object, the carbon footprint that left is 10 times what it should have been for something that could have been made locally. So that's the ideas about what we want to do. We want to start to look at what we've got in Australia. We want to clean that up and we want to remanufacture our own products. We don't need to be sending this away. We need to be cleaning up our own country first before we start, importing more plastics. And that's the ideas behind that. So yes, there's a marketplace there. It's just a case of identifying exactly what products we're going to do, which we do have a pretty concise list, but it's all quite dependent on growing our network of facilities, giving us the power to tackle those major mass-produced markets.
Now, David has also asked, I wonder, do 20-liter plastic drums, is the plastic that's used in those something that can also be recycled through your process?
I believe so. I have a gentleman has come to us with those, or has talked to us about coming with those containers. I haven't looked into them closely. Depending on what types of plastic they are, I'm unfamiliar with the particular type. But as long as they're a stamped plastic and they're numbered, there is absolutely no reason they can't be recycled. And those particular drums are a pretty major issue. If you go to most council recycling centres or even the tips, you will find a huge cage just full of those empty containers. So I think some of them do get reused and refilled depending on what product is in them. But yeah, typically most plastics can be recycled at some level.
Awesome. Now I wanted to touch, I guess, a little bit more broadly. You've already, I think, given us a very good illustration of what circular economy is, that it's about capturing those recyclable components on one side, being able to then recycle them and remanufacture them locally and put them into new products without having to go to China and back and all of that. And also it's about, I guess, creating products that can be broken down into those component parts that can go into the process, into remanufacturing. So what do you think is needed aside from Rethink Recycling Co-op, obviously? What are the other sort of gaps and opportunities in the marketplace that need to be addressed, that are opportunities, I guess, for businesses to innovate?
Yeah, look, that's it's a question that's relatively individualized as well as all-encompassing. Obviously the basis of a circular economy is that you want to keep that particular material or product within the system. So ideally nothing ever gets thrown away. We just continually either reuse it or remanufacture it back into that circular system. There's, the big things that we've really isolated what needs to change. I mean, from a personal point of view, attitude is a really big issue. People still see plastic as waste. People see things made from recycled plastic as potentially dirty. It's not as clean as something made from a virgin plastic. Visy had an amazing example recently in a seminar I was watching, that they took their products, because Visy currently take most of Melbourne's recycling, but it's only about 20% of actually what gets dropped off. So they're doing great stuff, but they did an experiment where they took a carton of liquid, I can't remember exactly what it was, let's say it was orange juice, identical product, identical packaging, except one packaging was their virgin packaging, the other packaging was their recycled packaging. And you could see the difference in the two packagings just because recycled material isn't as pure white. It does always have a little bit of imperfections in it, or some different, odd colors or something like that. It's always slightly a bit different. But anyway, it was still a sanitary product and it contained the exact same item. At the end of the week, the product that was left on the shelf was the product in the recycled container. So the virgin product was gone, the recycled product was still there, even though it was still the same contents. So that we see is a major attitude problem in making people accept, and even get to the point where they're blasé and they don't even look at it. So it's not like I'm noticing the differences, it's just is. Which could be as much as getting manufacturers on board to actually just stop producing virgin packaging and start using recycled packaging. But overall, it's an attitude shift, which is part of what we're trying to drive that change into doing, as well as obviously pushing that through the school system is going to tackle that a lot earlier before it becomes an issue. So That's probably the biggest thing. The next biggest thing is single-use plastic. We've got to get rid of single-use plastic, and we've got to reduce it to a point where it's only used where necessary. Again, some of this single-use stuff we have is fantastic, and it is necessary, and it does its job. Single-use plastics, a lot of them can't be recycled, which again, if you're going to use single-use plastic, make it so it can be recycled. Which brings me to the second problem. We make a lot of unlabeled plastic. If the plastic isn't numbered and labeled, we don't know what it is, we can't risk recycling it, because if you mix the wrong products together, it doesn't work, it contaminates, and it can no longer be recycled. So those are probably two of the major areas: is reducing single-use plastic, reducing single-use excessive use of plastic, changing attitudes, and making sure the plastic we make is recyclable. There's a heap of plastic out there that, one, is not numbered, two, it can't be recycled. They're composites. There's so much junk mixed in with the plastic that it has no choice but to go to landfill. So that's, those are probably two areas that need community involvement to change. It'd be great to increase our manufacturing, our national manufacturing ability for plastics. We really kind of killed that. Look, don't have any issues with China and the global economy and the way it functions, but the fact is that we've all just gone, no, look, it's too hard, it's too expensive, they'll do it for us, has really left us in a situation where we no longer have the ability to deal with our own problems, i.e. being plastic waste. We just cannot deal with it. Hence the reason we sent it off seas. And obviously there was a lot of countries doing the same thing, and China said, whoa, hang on a second, we're full, we can't take any more. So that's, again, and that's probably going to be driven on a governmental level. It's also big business needs to get behind that. It's good to see companies like your Coca-Colas and that are now really using a lot of recycled packaging, a lot of recycled plastics in their bottles and stuff, which is great. So the attitudes and the trends, they are sort of happening. They're probably just not happening big enough and fast enough. And then on top of that, just the government could be doing a lot more. They could be promoting this. They could be funding it. They could be giving it a heap more support. They could be doing marketing campaigns. Again, we've all seen what a good, strong marketing campaign can do, and it can change attitudes overnight. We killed single-use plastic bags almost within weeks of it being made, a mandate that we're just not doing it anymore. I just saw recently from next month or so, South Australia is banning all single-use plastic 100%. So the attitudes are out there. Things are moving. It's good, but I think we could be making a bigger difference, especially if the government really got behind it and pushed it, especially on a sort of in your face in the marketing point of view. So yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, that role of government in marketing, because obviously, we had Nick on this morning talking about all of the money and all the grants, but they're often, here's a 2-week window that they're actually available, and oh, sorry, you missed it. So it's great for anyone who's got an idea and got it all ready to go, waiting for a window to open. But that's not how industry works. That's not about how you actually create systems change. They're not looking at what are the root causes, what are the sort of the crux of these problems that we can tackle to allow businesses to bring their creativity and their innovation into this space. So
yeah, absolutely. And the power the government does actually have in driving these agendas, is huge, because the general population is quite influential, and we've seen the trends of just last year showed us what a big hard push from a governing body can actually change the way we live and the way we operate. So without them really embracing it and just giving money to people isn't necessarily going to fix the problem. And those grants are notoriously hard to get hold of, which I'm sure every small business owner probably knows. It would be great to just to see that level of support step up on a national scale, which I think would really help change things a lot faster. But until that happens, all we can do is sit back and try and drive it as much as we can at home.
Definitely. And it's awesome that you're helping with some of that grant, like writing and everything. And also this afternoon, we've got Millie, an accountant, to talk about the work that they do with a lot of entrepreneurs in not only those specific grants, but also broader R&D tax incentives and being able to access those. So that's good. Now I'm going to come back to Caitlin's question in just one second, because first I'm going to just ask you for your number one piece of advice for a small business looking to tap into the circular economy market and opportunities this year?
Okay. Hard question to pin down one piece of advice, and it's probably just generally the trend of what's coming out of this seminar. Is honestly just embrace it. If you're a business, it is the buzz thing at the moment. You want to be seen to be implementing sustainable practices. You want to be seen to be current, to be involved in the markets, to be pushing an agenda that promotes your product, but from a sustainable point of view. And look, your product doesn't necessarily need to be sustainable, but the way you are, your attitudes, what's driving you, how you operate your business can absolutely be the difference. Just quickly, for example, as much as my products are a sustainable product, I've dedicated my facility to running 100% off solar renewable energy. We put in a system that was twice the size of what we needed. So we've got a constant flow of renewable energy going back into the grid. We plumbed our entire facility into the rainwater system. So we're not necessarily drawing off council water stuff. Obviously, we drive ourselves to reduce our waste as much as possible. So just from those things, they're the changes. And even if our product wasn't a sustainable product, our businesses, our practice, and our process is, who we bank with. We back check all of that, where we buy our suppliers, who our suppliers are. We make sure all of these people have the same attitudes that we have. And honestly, if they don't, we don't use them. Even if it's a little bit sometimes spotting ourselves, if you don't have the right principles in your own business practice, we're not going to want to involve you in our business practice. So that's the one thing I would say, just embrace it, do it. You need to be showing to be growing yourself on a sustainable level and being involved actively in that, building that circular economy. It's what the government wants to see, it's what the councils want to see, and it's what consumers want to see.
Absolutely. Perfect. Well said. So Caitlin's question links into my final question, which is obviously that we want to continue to connect with Rethink Recycling. So how can people either follow or even get involved with Rethink?
Cool. Well, we have our socials are obviously up and running. So we're on Facebook and Instagram currently at the moment. So that is just literally rethinkrecycling.coop, and you will pick up both of Instagram and Facebook. Through Facebook, you can get directly in touch with us. You can also get directly a direct link into our membership form, which will give you the option to become a member of Rethink Recycling, get involved in our projects. You can get involved at any level, from a volunteer all the way up to a corporate sponsor, and that will allow you to tap into our network of businesses that are all working together. Our website is currently under construction, but you can most certainly still go there, and all of the contact information is there. And you can reach out to any of us anytime, and we can run you through exactly what we're doing and at what level you can get involved. We also offer a kicker for that. If you haven't got the time to physically get involved with us, we offer a carbon offset program through our cooperative as well. So you can, everyone's busy, not necessarily able to take the time to redirect their business through a sustainable path. So we also like to offer that option and get out there and plant trees. Basically, the only way to do a carbon offset is to plant trees, and we don't all have that much time to plant that many trees. So I think the lady before mentioned that, we all should be planting 150 trees per person in our lifetime. Well, we can absolutely offer that, and we can potentially get those trees planted within a year for you. So that's one way you can get involved without actually physically having to change anything you're doing as well. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Too good. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Matt, and thank you for everything that you're doing, filling these gaps out there in the circular economy. And I hope everyone will, check out those links, and I'll post all of those links to the socials into the Facebook group. And thanks so much for your time. We've got lunch now, and we'll be back at 1 o'clock if anyone wants to come back for the next session, which is John Purcell. So,
great. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for the time.
Bye.
Bye.